Hi everyone! For the last few weeks we have gone over each fighter from Hyper Juken's first set, the new challenges, and how to effectively use them out of the box so that you have a head start in your first experiences playing the game. Today we finish this series with Taichi the Weasel. Unlike Lucy and El Eterno, who are fairly easy to pick up for beginners, Taichi can have a bit of a learning curve. On face value we look straightforward. Stifle your opponent's game plans, then use other cards to capitalise upon it. But the turn-to-turn plays and handcrafting can be a bit tricky. This is mostly related to how synergistic as a whole Taichi's setup actually is. Let's start with Taichi himself and his theme of exhaust removal. He gives all of his attacks the hit effect to remove cards from the top of your opponent's exhaust equal to half of their original power rounded down. In stock configuration this is just 1 or 2 cards per blow, but along with the next few cards, it adds up over time. To complement Taichi, we have the 2 leg sweep cards, the attack card, surprising leg sweep, and the block card, inside leg sweep. Both have the same effect, lower your opponent's hyper 1 and remove the top 2 cards of their exhaust. Straight 2 removal, 5% of your opponent's arsenal, and hold them back from max hyper. They're both really good cards that help in multiple ways. To go with the leg sweeps you have Quick Core Strike. Quick Core Strike is a variant on surprising leg sweep in that it follows the same ideas, lowering your opponent's hyper and removing their exhaust, but the removal is doubled as a hit effect, meaning it will remove 5 at maximum with Taichi, 12.5% of their total cards. The issue that all 3 of these cards face, and Taichi does not, is that they all require your opponent to have an established exhaust to gain maximum benefit. Even Quick Core Strike requires your opponent to already have 3 cards in their exhaust to get the most from it. Compare this to Taichi, who just tacks the removal onto any attack after it inflicts damage, and the amount is based on that damage. Mid to late game these cards are amazing. As said, 5 to 12.5% of your opponent's cards, but they are firmly cemented into the latter parts of the game. This is why handcrafting is so very important to Taichi. This isn't to say Taichi is stuck with a dud opener, both Quick Core Strike and Surprising Leg Sweep being level 0. He's also packing Dizzying Strike, an absolutely fantastic opener. Dizzying Strike, should it hit, disrupts your opponent's hand, causes them to become stunned, but also causes them to draw a card at the end of your next action that combat. Dizzying Strike is a multifaceted card, and most of the time is so detrimental to your opponent on virtue of being random, it's worth blocking, and this is the real utility you want from it. The block itself feeds into your other cards too, as most of the time, that block will be sent to your opponent's exhaust. But should it hit, because of the draw, it actually brings your opponent down a further card, being theoretically 3 total damage. All of Taichi's payoff requires mid to late game, after you've gotten a decent stack of your opponent's cards removed from the game, so we'll get to that in time. Before we get there, let's look at Taichi's 2 debuffs, starting with the Key Disruptor. Key Disruptor only has a hit effect, in which it raises your hyper 2 and becomes a debuff. As a debuff, when your opponent pays Key to perform an attack, those cards are removed. Key Disruptor is actually quite interesting in what it causes to happen rather than what it actually does. What it does is highly beneficial, it's adding to your game plan, but it also makes your opponent behave oddly because they either don't want their cards removed, they'll buy time so they can neutralize Key Disruptor, or alternatively, it'll lock them into odd maneuvers to get the most out of their effects. Backbuster has a similar hit effect, except it lowers your opponent's hyper 2. As a debuff, whenever your opponent performs an attack, they are inflicted with effect damage equal to the level of their attack, between 0 and 3 effect damage per attack, adds up and gives Taichi the opportunity to create a damage gap. Effect damage also does not trigger breaker effects, so might negate some of those. In combination, these cards do quite the number to your opponent. Key Disruptor screws with their head and removes their cards, while Backbuster starts giving you damage for nothing, something that will not only inch you closer to victory, but you can capitalize upon with the exhaust removal cards discussed earlier, and in turn hit that payoff. Taichi's payoff for removal all revolves around removing blocked cards, something usually achieved via Taichi's effect and the package of exhaust removal. This starts with Taichi's hyper attack, Demon Wind Slash. Demon Wind Slash is your standard 9 power hyper attack, but should it be blocked, it still inflicts damage. But rather than combat damage, it inflicts effect damage based on the number of block cards your opponent has removed from the game. This puts your opponent in a rather precarious position. If they block, they can take up to 12 effect damage, but if they let it through and try to hit a breaker card to prevent damage, it will remove the top 4 cards of their exhaust thanks to Taichi. Demon Wind Slash is very much something best used to close out a game. In conjunction with this, you have Taichi's signature tactic, Demon of the Wind. Standard fare, raise your Hyper 2, draw a card if you have a copy of the Demon of the Wind in play as a buff, but as a buff, it's quite potent. Should your opponent block your level 1 plus attack that has an original hit effect with a block card, original effects being those printed on the card, your opponent takes effect damage equal to the number of block cards that share that card's name in their remove pile. Usually it's 1, maybe 2 damage, but that's enough. It makes a difference over the game. Does just what you want in conjunction with Backbuster, a steady stream of effect damage, like turning on a tap. Finally, you have a really basic but strong attack in Sniper Beam, an attack that cannot be blocked by a block card that shares its name with a card your opponent has removed from the game. This is usually a straight 4 damage they can't do anything about, that raises your Hyper 1. To bring this all together, you have both Kata cards, Retribution Form 1 and Opportunistic Form 1. Retribution Form 1 is your main source of Hyper, as it raises your Hyper 2 whenever your opponent blocks your attack with an original hit effect. Not something you can completely count on, but you can generally hit max Hyper once per fight. 4 of your 6 attacks, so 16 cards total of your 40 card arsenal, do have original hit effects. Opportunistic Form 1 turns your spare tactic cards into any of your level 1 attack cards with original hit effects in your exhaust. You'll have 3 spare over a game. You won't always need to cycle the Demon of the Wind and gain 2 hyper. At times your debuffs won't stick, either being neutralized or blocked, and this gives you another shot at forcing them to stick. Both debuffs are incredibly useful cards that will help end games. An ideal opening hand for Taichi would look something like this. Dizzying Strike, as established earlier, is the perfect bait, as the effect is so detrimental due to being randomized. Even if they let it hit, you may still hit a block with the effect, then capitalize upon that with Backbuster. If they block Dizzying Strike and do something worth blocking, go for Brutal Receipt, then into Backbuster, giving it a punishment for being blocked if they can. Finally go for Inside Leg Sweep to block something, since by this time your opponent should have an exhaust. If you draw something closer to this, I'd still play to it. Quick Core Strike is going to remove all damage it inflicts should it hit. Then you can follow that up with Key Disruptor. Might not hit, really depends on your opponent and how seriously they take an opening with Quick Core Strike, but you'll gain 2 hyper and be able to use Opportunistic Form 1 later to try to force Key Disruptor to stick. Generally, you want to play the game in phases when using Taichi out of the box. Start baiting them out and trying to get your debuffs to stick. Then as the game progresses, go after their exhaust. Then finish it up with Demon Wind Slash and Sniper Beam. You'll get to Sniper Beam being unblockable, and Demon Wind Slash doing at least 6 effect damage faster than you think, and 10 to 15% of your opponent's total cards mid to late game, it's a massive blow. If you liked today's video, remember to like, share, and subscribe. It really helps Juken grow. Be sure to check out Savage Shizu Games to find all of Juken's cards so far and how to play. Till next time friends, thanks for watching.